Scuderia Ferrari is trying to recover from a difficult moment in Formula One. The Maranello team has fallen into a harmful technical bottleneck from which they can't seem to escape. It all started with the aerodynamic upgrade package introduced at the Circuit de Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix weekend, where the eagerly anticipated updates did not deliver the expected advantage in terms of performance. On the contrary, the updates triggered bouncing and further narrowed the setup window of the SF-24 single-seater. Now, the many problems of the Ferrari SF-24 car are being slowly and progressively addressed by the technicians in Maranello. This is a step back coinciding with the exceptional step forward taken by McLaren since May. As anticipated in our usual preview dedicated to Ferrari, the Italian side is facing a very complicated challenge ahead of the Belgian Grand Prix. This is considering the difficulties the SF-24 has shown in cutting through the air. The Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, in its current 7 km iteration, is the longest circuit on the current calendar and a firm favorite among the Formula One drivers. It features fast and flowing corners, such as Pouhon, Blanchiment, and the Eau Rouge-Radillon complex, along which drivers ascend flat out through the Ardennes forest. Spa-Francorchamps also requires a trade-off for teams and drivers to settle upon the best approach. The power-hungry first and third sectors, which are almost flat-out bar the La Source hairpin and bus-stop chicane, are counteracted by the lengthy middle sector with an abundance of medium to high-speed corners. This characteristics makes it difficult for the teams to identify the ideal aerodynamic compromise. In fact, it is not unusual to see cars that are very strong in the fastest first and third sectors, struggling in the second slower one, or vice versa. Some combinations of corners, for example, Eau Rouge-Radillon, are very demanding and have unique characteristics. In this specific case, a strong compression which puts a lot of stress on both the driver and the car. The level of aerodynamic efficiency of the Italian car is good, but certainly not up to the top competitors, especially the McLaren MCL38 and the Red Bull RB20. This is why the aerodynamicists are often forced to endure compromises in order to reduce the drag of the Ferrari. This, in turn, complicates the generation of downforce because the floor is not able to provide the necessary amount of vertical thrust, a major problem since, especially on certain layouts where making aeromechanical compromises is more difficult, Ferrari exposes its weaknesses. All this considering that there is a certain chaos within the factory. The comings and goings of technicians in the middle of the season certainly do not help. The morale of the Maranello team is not at its highest right now, as we could see last weekend in the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Budapest circuit. The same goes for this morning in Belgium. Nevertheless, there are some new developments for the team. We are talking about track adaptations to maximize performance at the 7 km Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Ferrari present itself in Belgium with a new medium-low aerodynamic load wing configuration, a new specification that represents the lowest downforce version currently available to the Italian team. Therefore, the medium-load version introduced for the first time at the Imola circuit will not be finalized. The new specification features a main plane with an overall smaller wing surface. The concept is similar to the previously seen medium-load version. The main profile geometry is similar but less loaded. The greater incidence is found in the central part of the profile, while at its ends it is minimized to limit the drag induced by downforce as much as possible. The second flap is also similar, but with a lower incidence. Additionally, there is a local reduction in the chord in the central area to further increase top speeds. Ferrari's goal is very clear: to maximize top speeds, building the lap in the first and third sectors. An aggressive choice by the team that decides to significantly reduce the SF-24 car's drag. This context will inevitably penalize the more technical areas of the second sector, where the Maranello team will somehow have to minimize the losses. The task, however, will be very difficult because the vertical thrust necessary to provide the correct speeds in the second sector must still be found. For this reason, the suspension components will be stiffened once again, penalizing mechanical grip at low speeds. By trying not to stiffen the suspensions too much, Ferrari will attempt to lower the car to favor the production of load through the floor. As we know, this factor brings further problems, as there is a high risk of triggering bouncing, which can be very harmful. A setup that is expected to be quite complicated, because such a significant change at the rear must be counterbalanced by also reducing the load at the front. Therefore, the front wing has also been updated to decrease downforce and restore balance. a completely new package that will have to be validated and made to work with the rest of the updates that did not provide the expected results. The world of Formula One is very interesting and curious because by following the development of the cars, you can understand the direction of the teams over the course of the season. Ferrari's focus, at least at the beginning of the 2024 championship, was on Red Bull, but as the months went by, the reference shifted from the complex, and in some ways not replicable, RB20 to the McLaren MCL38. While it may not be a significant solution that can decide the Belgian GP, it is worth highlighting because the aerodynamicists led by Diego Tondi did not fixate on the RB20, preferring to draw inspiration from the MCL38. It is no secret that Project 677, the car for the 2025 F1 season, also internally known as the Ferrari for Lewis, is a project heavily inspired by the Woking team, which managed to bring to the track a car rightly defined as universal, meaning capable of adapting to any type of circuit, showing enviable performance stability. At the same time, it is worth pointing out that Scuderia Ferrari will start the Spa-Francorchamps weekend using the floor employed last weekend at the Budapest circuit in Hungary. This is the updated version of the floor that was discarded during the Silverstone weekend on Friday at the end of the second free practice session for the British Grand Prix, due to bouncing problems encountered by the Ferrari SF-24 car. The bouncing of the car convinced both Leclerc and Sainz to set it aside, reverting to the previous version first brought to the track at Imola. The team in Maranello then worked overtime to make modifications to the new floor before the Budapest weekend, where the bouncing issue did not manifest. However, not all doubts have been dispelled. The bouncing is strongly linked to the type of circuit, and the layout of Spa is significantly different from the Hungarian one, with a variety of fast corners that are the natural habitat where bouncing can occur. The Italian side will navigate by sight. The first practice sessions will serve to understand if the car's drivability remains acceptable, leaving the final choice to the drivers. If excessive bouncing problems arise, they will proceed with the old floor, returning to the version used during the Silverstone weekend. The scenario could be further complicated by the weather conditions expected for this weekend in Belgium. Both tomorrow and Saturday, there is a 70% chance of rain, and if the track remains wet, it will be impossible to carry out the necessary checks, making the choice for drivers and engineers, in view of Sunday's race, much more difficult, especially since lower speeds are reached in wet conditions, and the problem could remain hidden. The definitive solution will come only later in the season, most likely in the Singapore Grand Prix weekend or at the Monza circuit in Italy, where a new floor will debut that should ensure the aerodynamic load values seen in the latest version without compromising the SF-24 car's drivability.